Hello and welcome to episode 18 of the Paranormal Paradigm podcast. Today's episode is a bit of a special one, a bit rare, where it will be of an interview that I was involved with Melissa Martell. You might remember Melissa from a few episodes back. She came on to talk about green ladies and other spirits in the UK. She decided to have myself and another paranormal investigator, Kieran Begg, onto her show, and we did a kind of paranormal roundtable, and we discussed things related to paranormal franchises. So that's big groups, I guess your TV shows like Most Haunted and Ghost Hunters, and we discussed how they're affecting the investigative field and the paranormal research field in a negative way. We also discuss our own personal experiences, what we class as one of our best personal experiences when out investigating the paranormal, and where we see the future of paranormal investigations going. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it heading in the right direction? That's something else that we discuss during this interview. So I hope you're all keeping well. I hope you're all keeping safe during this ongoing situation that we have across the world. Wherever you are, I hope you're doing well. And I hope restrictions aren't that bad and it hasn't affected your lives and your livelihoods that much. Despite still having to work from home, which I'm having to do at the moment, I am getting a bit more spare time because we're not going out and socialising with friends and family. And I'm using that spare time to work on my second book, which is going to be titled Experiences of a Paranormal Investigator, where I'm going to be talking about the categories of experiences that you might have when you're out investigating the paranormal. I've broke them down into such things as audio, visual, empathetic, if you're one of those kind of people that feels things and senses emotions. So I've broke them down into categories, and I'm going to be including some of my own personal experiences within those categories and what it is that people really need to look out for when they might be experiencing these things whilst investigating. Of course, if you've read my first book, An Introduction to Paranormal Investigation, this was a natural follow-on for me. It kind of, people want to grow into investigating, and if someone's read the first book and they've got a bit more of an understanding of what investigating is all about now, they will naturally go out and start investigating, and then might begin to have experiences and might not understand what they are or how to deal with them or what to class them as. So hopefully the second book in the series, I guess it is, will help them understand that, and they can kind of come on this journey with me with the books and with their own personal experiences. If you haven't yet read my first book, An Introduction to Paranormal Investigation, it is available through Amazon. You can get it through Kindle as an ebook, or you can get it as a physical copy. And also, if you just contact myself through the Facebook page or at paranormalparadigmpodcast@gmail.com, I'm more than happy to send you a signed copy. Not a problem at all. Obviously, with the current situation in the world, though, there might be a little bit of a delay. But do contact me should you wish me to send you a copy, and that wouldn't be a problem. Right, on with today's show. So I hope you enjoy it. As I say, it is a bit of a different one. It's not just myself interviewing a guest. You'll hear three voices. There'll be myself, Melissa Martell, the host of the Secret Door podcast, and Kieran Begg from the Paranormal Guys. So we're going to get into a few controversial topics, I guess. Should any of you have any opinions on what we discuss and what you hear, do let me know. It's always great to hear other people's opinions on this topic. It is a bit of a hot topic at the moment. A topic I feel does need discussing in terms of the future of the paranormal investigative world, and where it's heading, and what who's to blame for that. And partly it is these franchises are to blame, and these TV shows are to blame for the current state of paranormal investigating. But that being said, please enjoy the show, and here it is.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Secret Door podcast. And behind the Secret Door today, I have with us on the podcast Kieran Woodhouse and Kieran Begg, the two Kierans. They are both paranormal investigators, and they have both been on the show before. Kieran Begg came to talk about an investigation he did at Pontefract, I believe, and Kieran Woodhouse came to talk about his book that he had out last year about paranormal investigations and sort of like a 101 and how to get into it. And we're kind of having a paranormal roundtable here where we're going to talk about the impact of franchises and television on real paranormal investigations. But first, I'm going to ask Kieran Woodhouse, Kieran Begg, both of you can just say hi and then know the difference. You're both from the UK and you're both named Kieran, so this is going to be interesting.
Yes.
So, Kieran Woodhouse, anything new going on in the paranormal? Anything you've done lately?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's all obviously been put on a stop. But just before that, I've been kind of going around the country giving a new presentation about evidence. So the following from my book, which was an introduction to paranormal investigation, I'm now working on experiences of a paranormal investigator. So the idea being that these people are coming on a journey with me. They've got the 101 now, and now they're going to start experiencing things, and they might want to know what that is. And in order to kind of get evidence and for my presentation, I studied a house. I went to a house, spent a fair bit of time there with this family, and it is very, very similar and only a few miles down the road from Enfield, and of course the famous Enfield haunting. And it's a very, very unique case. I've got hours and hours of video footage of physically things being moved, things being thrown, audio phenomena, I guess some kind of weird electronic phenomena, walls being shaken, shadow forms running across hallways and through doors. A fantastic case, really. Privileged to be looking into it.
That's fascinating. So, Kieran Begg, what's new? What's going on at your end?
Not an awful lot, to be honest. Unfortunately, my colleague Chris has been very unwell recently, so we've kind of had to put everything on hold until he gets better, really. So we've just kind of been working on doing our podcast and just trying to do a lot of research for that, really.
Great. Yeah, we're also doing this as a swapcast. So basically, I'm going to put this out, and this podcast will also be on, I believe you both run podcasts, right?
Yeah. So Kieran at the Paranormal Guys, that's his podcast. He'll be hosting this, and Kieran Woodhouse will be hosting this. So we're sort of getting 3 podcasts in one recording.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, you don't have to go too far in the UK probably to even have an investigation. You could probably go out in your backyard and find something to investigate. You could guys be in lockdown and probably walk 10 feet and go, oh my God, I think this place is haunted. I'm being a little sarcastic.
I wish it was that easy.
No, I know.
Yeah, I think it's the subject we're going to talk about later is kind of puts a stop to how that's possible anymore, really. But I mean,
a good point that one then, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is great. I'm lucky enough to have a pub just over the road where the landlord allows me to do almost weekly investigations there. Where we try and contact a spirit of a different kind, and it's they're always interesting nights. So yeah, we do have a lot of locations close to hand.
But you can't even go to the pub now.
No, thanks for that. That's depressing.
I know. Isn't I know. I'm really good at social isolating and being really independent and working from home, but this is even starting to I can't go boxing, I can't go and do this, so I'm like, oh boy, this is I don't know how long this is going to go on. Obviously, I'm all for being healthy and stopping the spread of a virus, but people might get a little bit, We'll see what happens. I don't want to make that the topic of this podcast. So let's get into the idea. Not the idea. This isn't an idea. This is actually happening, where you've got franchises and TV shows taking over and basically having a monopoly on the paranormal, and it's sort of making it for smaller researchers a little challenging.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, Kieran, I don't know if you want to kind of start off on that.
Yeah, I think this is a topic that is quite close to my heart because I've got quite strong opinions on it. I think it's safe to say that a lot of investigators, and Kieran, correct me if I'm wrong, probably started out in the field because of Most Haunted or Ghost Hunters or
absolutely,
things that you see on TV. And I think now with the influx of YouTube stars and TV shows that are coming on the screen, it's getting a lot more people interested, and it's certainly bringing it out into the forefront. But it's also creating I don't want to say fakery, but because a lot of these YouTube stars try and elaborate things and make things more than they actually are, that it's taking away what paranormal investigating is actually about, and it's more for entertainment than it is for actual science and actual research.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with that. I think for me, it's kind of 2, 3, sometimes even 4-fold. It depends how much I sit down and think about it. But I mean, it is good. You know, it inspired a generation of people to go out and hunt ghosts. Well, I used to watch Most Haunted when I was a kid with my dad, and it was fantastic. But then what it does is it gives people a false illusion of what ghost hunting is. You know, they turn up to investigations expecting someone to be possessed within the first 10 minutes. Something's going to be flying off the shelf within the first 15 minutes. And if that hasn't happened, we've literally had people after half hour tell us that they're bored and they want to leave because it's not how it is on TV. And that's not what ghost hunting is about. So there's that element of it, but there's also the element of prices, you know, and these people like Most Haunted and other franchised groups going around basically buying up all the locations at a ridiculous price that people like me and Kieran's team won't be able to afford. And it's just becoming a very expensive hobby now.
So one of the things that tying into that I really wanted to know is because it's in pop culture, because they've made it a hit TV, the only reason that can happen is because of the demand to see it, or the demand for the experience, and people are demanding some sort of entertainment. And I think we know this goes down the path, like you're saying, people are bored, but that you're not actually getting an investigative experience, you're getting a entertainment experience, and your prices are being jacked up because there's a demand for it. They know they can charge it. If there wasn't a demand, they wouldn't be doing it.
I think with that, on the entertainment side, I think if people actually showed what a investigation was really like, then I think a lot of people would be turned off by it. I mean, I'm guilty of that myself with, you know, the documentaries that we make for YouTube and all the videos that I've done over the years. You literally just pick out all the bits that have got evidence, and then when you put it together, you try and make a sense of story behind it from where you started and where you finish. But all you're doing is picking out all the evidence to say this is what we caught. You're not showing the full investigation, because if you did show the 6-7 hours of sitting around in the dark asking out to nothing and getting no response, people would be, well, this is boring, I don't want to do this. So it's the TV shows are trying to show the full investigation, and 9 times out of 10 when you investigate, certainly in my experience, is that you don't get an awful lot. So these TV shows and what they're doing is they're doing these episodes of where they're trying to show all the evidence, but because they're not getting an awful lot, they try and maybe elaborate on what they're actually getting. So a click in the corner is made out to be something demonic, so it can be a little bit more exciting, whereas when you're actually investigating, a click in the corner is the heating going off or just the wood settling, you know?
I suspect they're doing a lot more than just embellishing a natural click in the corner. I mean, I suspect that at some level they're actually creating the sound effects or creating something in the dark, or someone's throwing something. You know, it reminds me of spiritualism at the turn of the century, really.
Well, I've actually got.
That. I didn't want to say that.
I'll say it.
I gave a presentation somewhere, and I got talking to this young lady whose brother used to work for Most Haunted, and she told me some very eye-opening stories of what they used to do and how they used to kind of go about getting these noises and making things happen on camera when nothing was really going their way. And of course, the other thing to remember is that when people come on an investigation with us, we are there for, as Kieran says, 6 hours, 7 hours. And these guys are then condensing that down into a 45-minute program, which is then only 20 minutes worth of investigating once you take out, you know, all the rubbish they talk about at the start and at the end. So 7 hours worth of evidence, shall we say, condensed into 20 minutes is going to look action-packed, whether they faked it or not. And so, again, people don't see that. They think, oh, that's what it's going to be like constantly. and it's not. And I think what's happened is we've had this split between the research industry and the entertainment industry, and it's almost like wrestling. So WWE or WWF or whatever it's called now, people, they want that, they want to watch this kind. They know it's fake, that they know it is, but they love it. They love the entertainment side. But what they don't see is the day of where all the roadies are setting up the ring and setting up the walkways and putting all the chairs out. They don't see that, and they don't care, and they don't see the aftermath of tidying it all away and making sure that everything's okay again. They just want the fighting kind of thing, even though they know it's fake.
I just want to elaborate on a point that you made there. You talked about obviously the research side and the entertainment side. When I started out investigating back in 2009, there was a plethora of groups around Bristol that every single week they would be releasing reports about an investigation that they had. Now, whether or not I just noticed it because I was looking out for it. But now, when you try and find paranormal groups, they're not releasing out reports about what's happening. It just seems to be that they're putting videos on YouTube and making these 45-minute shows to try and get views. And by the end of it, they're going, click the merch, link in the bio to get our merch. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, all this kind of stuff. And the whole research aspect of it is now gone. There's no, getting people to read your reports and be excited about releasing a report and what evidence you've got. It's now about trying to get people to follow you now and try and be paranormal influencers, I think.
Well, paranormal influence. There's a guy on YouTube. I won't say the show's name, but he's from the US, and he's like, he runs it where his whole entire family's involved, and it gets like crazy where he'll say he's possessed by a demon, and then on his Facebook he'll show himself in the hospital, pictures in the hospital, and try to tie that into the possession. And his whole kids, and they're all involved, and they make good money from it, so they have to keep this crazy, I don't know, he's got like this little cult following, and he's like a rap star too, and it's just like, oh Jesus, it's so
Wow.
it's so bizarre. But you know what, people watch it, and he's got this whole community of people who support him and work with him and help him make his money, and he pretty much lives off of this. Like, this is his living. And so I'm like, I can understand why people are like, hey, I could actually live off of this. But you really, I mean, if you're a rap star and you're faking Ouija boards and saying you're possessed and it winds you in the hospital, I mean, you're not doing really objective, scientific, investigative journalism.
No, I mean, what you just said there about the whole kind of, this guy's kind of, I don't know, knows he can make money from it. That's the biggest thing, because we all start out with best of intentions, and I think the people that run these groups do, and I think Most Haunted did. But the second money starts to play a big part, and that they realise that they can make money from tickets and as Kieran says, merchandise and followers and things like that, then their whole, I think their whole priorities change. And as soon as that happens, in my opinion, they no longer become reliable sources for research, because they're only in it for the money, and I think that's what's happening.
Yeah. Well, this guy, if I may say so, there's no paranormal, investigative, anything. It's all about the cult of personality with the show, is what I noticed. It's all about him, rap star, da 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 da. It would be like I don't know, Madonna suddenly starts paranormal investigating, and she's like, she's like, come on, ghosts, doing some kind of Vogue thing, and it's not about that. It's about Madonna with her personality showing up here, and he's done a good job of it, and he has a following. But it's I mean, anybody who believes the stuff that's going on in his video is I can understand why cults are rampant in our world, basically.
I think one big point that all this has done to paranormal investigating is it's almost made it a bit of a joke, because when you certainly when Most Haunted was on TV, the minute you say I'm a paranormal investigator, people go, oh, you're like Yvette Fielding, you're like Most Haunted, aren't you? And when you're trying to explain to them, well, no, we're not, we'd look at it from a scientific point of view. Our group's quite skeptical, so we look at it from a skeptical side. So all these kind of YouTube stars and TV shows, and even some of the groups, they're kind of making a bit of a joke about, when you say I'm a paranormal investigator, people think, oh, you run about the dark screaming, don't you? And you're like, well, no, that's not what we do. It's just, we're trying to do this seriously, and they're kind of having a massive impact on the industry.
Yeah, I think the best place, in my opinion, to go if you wanted to look at serious researchers would be like the SPR, Society for Psychical Research. I mean, they're whenever I go and look at even their stuff on Facebook, they seem to have this real, it's not for entertainment. It's well grounded. They've got people who are research orientated and I'll use the word scholarly for a lack of a better word, but they seem to have a really good sense, and their presence has been around for a long time. They're not there for your entertainment. They're there for valuable information. Like Kieran was saying, how people would report before, that they still hold, in my opinion, to that integrity.
Yeah. I think that's really important that you've got that group of people that are doing that.
I think I've had several experiences with the SPR, and they've all been quite positive. The one thing I would say about them, though, is they can be quite judgmental towards smaller groups. Mm-hmm. I think what they do is just like Kieran mentioned there, that we kind of all get tarred with the same brush, that we all run around like Yvette Fielding. I think they sometimes fall into the trap of not being arrogant, but almost thinking that they're slightly better than other bigger group,
right.
Other smaller groups who might not have the punch that they have, or the weight that they hold. And I think sometimes that can come across negatively. Although on the whole, I have had positive experiences with them.
So, Kieran Begg, when you did an investigation on Pontefract, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And you had some interesting things to say, like just recapping about even showing up to Pontefract to do an investigation. It felt like there might have been a subtle setup with like the lady who was, watching the property or whatever it was. There's, this idea that they're setting it. I want to be careful with my words. They're possibly, subtly setting it up to try to implement scenarios in your mind so that you will maybe project it out and have an experience, or at least that's how I understood it.
Absolutely. I mean, everything I'm going to say, I'll just strictly say it's my opinion. I don't want to say, that's the opinion of the Paranormal Guys or anything like that. I just want to put that out there. But in my opinion, yeah, I think I was really, really excited about going to Pontefract because it's one that you've heard about from TV shows, from YouTube videos, and you're really excited about it. And it's like when you meet a celebrity and you go there, you're really excited to meet them, but then when you walk away, you're like, well, that was a load of rubbish. And the sense that you got that when you went there, that it's all hyped up and it's all built up to be something that is not. And then when you actually, certainly when we investigated it, that night we were able to debunk every single thing that happened straight away. And I think when we walked out of there, we were like, well, that was a damp squib. And I think the lady who runs it, as I mentioned when we discussed it, had what I call John Humphrey syndrome, which is she believes so much in what happened that she's actually convinced herself that what's happening is real and will not have anyone tell you otherwise. So if you went in there and say, I'm really sorry, but there's nothing here, she will not listen to you. She will be guaranteed that there is something happening. Funnily enough, I actually saw a video on YouTube which was top 5 ghosts caught on camera list, and one of her videos was on there, and it was her in the house on her own, and things were being thrown around, and there was voices, there was banging, there was all this stuff going on. So I watched it and I went, how is that possible? Because nothing like that happened when we went there.
Your analysis of the video, did it look like, did it look like it was a setup, or did it look like,
it was obvious there was someone else in the house, because the way she'd angled the camera is like there was a teddy bear that was thrown at her, but it was thrown from the corridor and she was in the bedroom and you didn't see where the teddy bear came from.
What?
And a door was opened, and it's just silly.
I'm just baffled about the psychology behind someone who can do that. Like they want it to be haunted so bad. They believe, like, there's a little disconnect there. Like it's not happening, but you want it so bad that you'll fake it. And this happens with UFOs. I mean, this happens all over the place with the paranormal. Like, have you guys ever really thought about what psychology is of that person who does that? Like it's disturbing.
I think it's a belief system. I think it's we've had people come who've just lost a loved one, and they keep, they're adamant they're hearing things and they're seeing things, and whilst they might be, nobody else is really sharing those experiences. So you have to put it down to it's kind of in their mind, and it's this wanting to hear their loved one contact them so much that they do. And I think it's the same. I think although this particular lady has a lot to benefit by quote marks proving that this house is haunted financially, she has a lot to benefit. So it's actually quite clever what she's doing. I think it's a belief thing.
I just honestly, if like my grandmother passed away and I was quite sure 2 weeks later she showed up around here because I could feel her, I didn't feel the need to go out and fake it. I honestly, when someone does that, when they jump over and they make that step to actually faking it, I honestly think they don't actually believe it, and that they have to recreate this to reinforce it, that there's a part of them that knows that it's BS and that nothing's happening. Like you would have to go out and fake it. There's a part of you that doesn't believe your own bullshit. Because otherwise, if you just think that something happened, you can accept that it happened and let it be. So it's either one, financial, that they want some financial and keep it going. They have to keep the hype going about it. That could be one element. But if you're faking it and you must not believe that it really happened if you have to go out and set things up. And at some level in your consciousness, you must know that it's not true. Otherwise, why would you go and fake it? You would just say, well, I had this experience. Nobody else is having it, and I'm fine with that, but I know what I had. So, like, I don't know. That's just how I feel about that.
I think some of it is also, like I say, it's convincing yourself that it's real. And if you tell a story so many times, you manage to convince yourself that story is true. Certainly with the ancient Ramin, as I mentioned with John Humphreys, I think he told the story over the years for 20 odd years every single time someone came in. I'm personally convinced that he had convinced himself that these things were going on, even though there's no, in my opinion, conclusive evidence to prove that these things are actually happening, but he's managed to convince himself that they are.
But he had a total alternative motive, in my opinion. I think he was very lonely. And so the same thing, you have to keep stuff up. You have to, well, there's only one person there, that John Humphreys. And so there's, he's lonely. And I think they have to keep this whole thing up because they do know it's fake. They would have to. If you're faking it and you're doing stuff at some level, it's not real. You may not be consciously admitting it, and you may be doing a lie so you get the attention or the money or the people coming, and you're not lonely and you feel special. But at some level, you would have to know it's fake if you're faking it.
Well, we went to the ancient Ramin after John had passed. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the most uneventful nights I've ever experienced. I wasn't blown away, but I never got to go when he was alive, but I wasn't blown away by it at all. And we were even, talking on the night about, we had some people again who were so adamant that it was, so haunted, and they were trying to come up with excuses as to why it was so quiet, and they were saying, oh, well, maybe he's taken the spirits with him. I said, well, he's taken something with him, but I wouldn't say it's the spirits.
Well, Kieran Begg has been there when he was alive and after, so that might be a discussion for you both to have right now.
I had the pleasure of meeting him twice. And the first time I met him, he was absolutely a lovely man. Couldn't say a bad word about him. I just think, like you said, Melissa, I think he was just a lonely man, and he wanted people around him. And the way that he thought he could get people around him was by telling these stories. He knew people would drink it up. But the first time we went with a big group of people. We had about 15 people, and Kieran, I'm sure you'll agree with me. The location's too small to have a lot of people in there. I think
100%. Yeah.
For contamination purposes. And we got a lot of noises, and I was quite new to the field, so I was quite naive in thinking that what a noise could be. It could have been someone else in in another room, and I just got excited. The second time we went, absolutely nothing, and he was there again. But the second time we went, we kind of got the impression that he was happy for us to be there, and he wanted us to be there, but he didn't really want to get involved. He just kind of wanted to sit in front of the TV, and just kind of left us to it. And then the third time was after he sadly passed, so we had the whole place to ourselves, and there was just three of us, so it was quite a daunting experience to have just three of us in this house that you have heard all these stories about. But like you say, Kieran, it was one of the most uneventful evenings next to 30 East Drive that I've ever investigated.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the size of the place as well, I couldn't get over the state of the place. I mean, there was so much of it that we couldn't go into for health and safety reasons. And I know that it's an old building, of course, but if we're going to talk about the monetary side of things, it was an expensive location to go to, and you don't get full use of the location, which was rather disappointing to say the least.
Now that it's being run financially as well, I believe Kieran Begg mentioned this when we were talking about this before, that there's a possibility that, you don't know if anything's set up, or you have no idea. I'm not saying that it is, but that could be a possibility with any of these locations where people are investing money to give you a paranormal investigative experience. Like on the Pontefract one, Kieran, I believe you were saying, Kieran Begg, that the woman, the one in charge, the one you say that we're pretty sure she's faking the video, that she actually, it was like a little subtle psychological technique where when you show up, she says, oh, well, never mind if the door moves up there. That's just whatever the ghost name. She tries to sort of plant these ideas in your head because there's a glitch or there's something wrong structurally and it's going to move. So she's already, pre-planting stuff in your head that that's a ghost.
Well, this is it, and I think a key point of that is that the main associations that go with the house are paranormal events companies where people are paying to have these sort of experiences. So if they're getting her to come and speak to the group, and she says, "Oh, the door opens upstairs," straight away you've got 10 people who are there on tenterhooks going, "Oh, the door's going to open. That's really exciting." What she doesn't bank on is private groups going in there who are there for scientific reasons and there to get the evidence and not there to have a scare. So when she says, "Oh, by the way, the door opens, just look out for that," straight away, as soon as the door opens, we go, right, let's find out why this door's opening. Why is this? There must be a rational explanation. She wouldn't have said it otherwise. So straight away, you've got that thought in your head that you're going to be skeptical about whatever happens. And it's a similar sort of thing with the Ram Inn. When you get the email to say that she's going to lie you in, she tells you the codes and all that. She says you're on CCTV, which is understandable because there's no one in the house and she wants to protect it. That's fine. But there was a thing in the back of my head which said, if I'm on CCTV, does that mean that they set something up and they want to watch our reaction? Is there that element of it? So I was a little bit skeptical when they said that, but then obviously you've got the security side of things as well.
Mm-hmm. Have you, Kieran Woodhouse, have you ever had that experience where you went to a location and it seemed like you were like someone was trying to implant some subtle notions into you, hoping that you would, fall for that? Yeah,
in fact, one of the first, I think it was the first ghost hunt I ever went on as a paying guest with one of these big franchises that now dominate the UK. We went to a place called Dudley Castle, which is not far from me. And they had a resident medium that was coming round with us. And all night she was telling you, oh, there's a man following you, and is everyone else feeling cold, and can anyone else see the shadow by the doorway? And she was really pushing you down kind of avenues of feelings and sightings. And it was so, it was frustrating, but it was fascinating to watch this kind of group herd mentality where she would tell someone, "Can anyone see the shadow?" And you'd have 6 or 7 people all say, "Oh yeah, I can see that now." And I was looking, thinking, I can't see a thing. And she was just blatantly kind of pulling it into their minds, and forcing them to see and feel things that weren't really there. And of course, it's all to ensure that they have a good night and they don't feel ripped off from the money they've spent, because it's a lot of money, and to ensure that they leave good feedback on social media and that they get repeat business.
I find a lot of psychic mediums and spiritual people often do this. Like, I've been sent videos, okay, you'll have somebody who says they're possessed. Say they're possessed. I'm just using this as an example because I've seen this before. They say that they have a demon, or they're saying they're having problems. And someone who says they're an exorcist or a psychic that does these sort of clearings, there's something strange going on. Like, the person who's saying they're possessed wants some kind of attention, and I believe there's something other than possession going on. So they'll get in contact with a psychic medium, and then they'll send stuff as evidence. And I've had psychic mediums show me their evidence, and it was like literally a door creaking just a little bit. It could have been drafted. And I was thinking, God, if that's a demon, we don't have much to worry about. And and I was just like, really? And they were putting stuff up as evidence. And I said, if you go out into the paranormal world, or I'm like, you're going to get trashed. Like, people are going to be like, that's ridiculous. I don't hear anything. I don't see anything. I can guarantee you. So I've also noticed that they'll do that, but they like to keep it in small little groups with their small little followers, because those people are easy to control, to make so that you believe that this is real. But there's something weird going on between some of the medium psychics and their clients. It's like some sort of, I don't know what to call it, where the person who's possessed has some issues and they want some attention, and the psychic medium, well, they want to be validated as a psychic medium. And I just found that often when I was listening and looking at people's stuff, that there's this weird relationship going between psychic medium and their clients sometimes. And it's in the evidence that they were presenting to me. I just was really, I couldn't, I'm like, well, okay, I don't know what to say. Like, I've seen my door move like that, and it's like a breeze, or it's the hinge, or there's some logical explanation. I don't know what you want me to say to you. I can't validate that there's a demon in that house. I'm sorry, I just can't.
I've only ever used a medium once on an investigation, and that was when I first really ever started investigating back up in Aberdeen. And he came along to the investigation, and nice enough guy, had a nice conversation with him. But the group I was part of was quite scientific, and he refused flat out to be tested. So, when he asked something about, I can't remember what he said, but he said something about like a woman being in the building. But when we asked him about the woman, asked for her name, and tried to actually correlate it with some of the research that we had done, he absolutely outright said, "Oh, she's not giving me her name. She's just appearing in front of me. She's not really talking to me." And it's just like, really, like if you are 100% confident in your abilities, and you can, you're standing in front of me saying that you can speak to the dead, then surely you would tell me absolutely everything I need to know.
Yeah, I think I have to. Sorry, I think with that, I've had that with mediums where I've had readings and they've said, "Oh, there's a guy here, and I don't know if he's your granddad, or he might be your wife's granddad, or maybe your mum's granddad." And I'm like, "Well, can't he just tell you? Can't he just tell you that he's my granddad? It would make all of this assuming a lot easier to deal with." I've never understood that.
Now, I do think that there's an ESP that happens between humans, but I don't think that it's some kind of woo-woo talk to the spirits. I think like humans naturally pick up on, especially if you're close to someone, you pick up on their thoughts or their habits or their subtle body language. I do think there's some natural thing that happens, but I don't think it's some all-powerful, you're, ridding demons or communicating with the beyond necessarily. It's a little bizarre, but Derek Okura recently passed away. Speaking of mediums, and I don't want to be negative on Derek because he had, like I said, he unexpectedly passed away. But I think he's one of the big ones when you talk about it that has led to this sort of, and there's shows that have come before him where they've done this, but he's a biggie when it comes into, mediums and the entertainment sort of aspect and using them as a tool to find out if there's ghosts. And I mean, when you look at it, it's if there is a psychic ability between humans that's really natural and subtle, someone like Derek Acorah shits all over that, for lack of a better word.
I mean, I completely agree. I mean, I went to go and see him live a couple of times because my grandmother was obsessed with him and she wanted to go and see him live. And I was sat there and I tried to be supportive for my grandmother. She was really wanting a reading for my granddad and all that kind of stuff. And I was trying to be as supportive as possible, but I was sat there the whole time going, like, you are just, I don't believe anything that you're saying to me because you're just this character from Most Haunted to me. You're not a medium on stage. You're just this character that you've created from Most Haunted. And that's kind of what I think he was kind of known for. I think he was really famous for being on Most Haunted. And whenever anyone went to go see him, it was because of Most Haunted and not because of his psychical ability.
Yeah, he's probably cold reading for the most of the part, would be my guess.
I would say so too. Yeah, I think so. I mean, a lot of the time we would say, I've got someone here with tubes sticking out of them, and that's what he's showing me. And I'm like, well, 9 out of 10 people die with tubes sticking out of them. It's not exactly. Yeah.
He's taking a vague description, throwing a shot in the dark, and because he knows someone will be like, well, my nan had tubes. Wow, maybe that's my nan.
Exactly.
And the chance, like you said, the chances are is that there's 40% of the audience who's recently had somebody who had tubes connected to them before they died in the hospital.
Exactly.
I think most of them they pick their targets as well. When you talk about these people that they have a select following and they stick within their select following, it's because they know they can get away with it there. They're not going to be questioned. They're not going to be pushed out of their comfort zone. And I think when you get to the popularity of Derek Acorah, I think it kind of takes care of itself in that respect. Of course, you're going to get people go like Kieran went and was still skeptical, but 95%, if not more, of the audience are going to hang on his every word, and he's not going to be able to do wrong. And I think that's how they continue to be so popular and continue to thrive by basically picking their battles and knowing, I'm not going to give that person a reading because they look like they could be skeptical. And I think that's how they get so popular.
Yeah, I mean, no, go ahead, Kieran.
I was going to say, also it kind of comes down to when you've got a medium, they don't want to be proved wrong. So if you can prove that, if they've got something wrong, and you can prove to them that they've got something wrong, they don't want to hear it. And I think a lot of the industry of entertainment and TV, and I think that is what's happening quite a lot in the paranormal community now, is because a lot more people are willing to share their experiences on the likes of YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And when you've got people who have been in the industry for a long time are going, well, actually, no, I don't think what you've caught is evidence. They get so funny about it, and I think mediums are exactly the same. If you can, almost like go against what they're saying, they will get so funny about it.
Yeah. One of the areas that I was always really interested in when it comes to psychic... Sorry, I'll say that again. I'll edit that out. One of the areas that I was always interested in when it comes to psychic and ESP that I think is valid at looking at is not people who claim they're psychic mediums, but people who, upon knowing nothing of a situation and someone it has a sudden trauma or death that it appears to them, or they suddenly know, or they have a communication. I always found that really fascinating because they were people who don't claim, they don't really want people to know, they think it's bizarre, they don't run around claiming to be psychic mediums and have this power, but they have this experience when someone close to them dies that's maybe far away and they didn't know. I always found that level very fascinating to research. That's why when I see mediums, putting on the big act and showing up and claiming all this power, I like, that's why I use the word shit on it, because I think there is something there at some certain level where humans communicate non-verbally that is worth looking into. So it's always disappointing to me to see psychic mediums acting like they have some sort of power when I think they're just really good at reading people's personality and, like you say, sussing out who is their target and taking advantage of people's vulnerable situations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a key point you've hit on there, Melissa, is that seems to be what they do is highlighting people's vulnerabilities and playing off it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to be the whole entire show to just be about bashing the paranormal. I mean, obviously, you guys are doing this because maybe you've had some experience. So maybe we can get into a little bit of the second half talking about what is positive about being a smaller investigator and what kind of confirmation you've had that makes you want to keep investigating.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think for me, one of the best experiences I've had is this house that I mentioned at the start that I've started kind of conducting a case study on. Within minutes of walking into the house, one of their most common claims was they would have pennies thrown at them, and I have pictures to show where pennies have hit the plaster wall and dented the wall. Such was the force that these pennies are being thrown. And within 5 minutes of walking into the house, we'd had 2 pennies thrown at us from upstairs. Of course, I went upstairs to find nobody up there. And then throughout the night, it got weirder and weirder. We were all conducting a spirit board session downstairs, and we were all accounted for. And every single one of us in the room heard 3 footsteps creaking on the landing upstairs, and then the door. It was quite a classic creaky door moment, but the door got pushed open, and we got the door opening on camera. Of course, I've never ran so fast in my life. Got up the stairs. Nothing there. We tried to recreate it by walking across the landing, and we could recreate the sound of the footsteps, but we couldn't account for what had made them or what had opened the door either. So when you see stuff like that and you experience stuff like that, and although that is the very, very, very small percentage of times, that's what makes you want to keep going back for more.
I think for me, was an experience I had when I investigated the Breandown Fort.
Sorry, which place? Which place was that?
It was called Breandown Fort.
Okay.
It was an old Napoleonic fort, just down from Weston-super-Mare, and we were filming down this corridor, and there was no female members of staff, if you like, with us apart from my partner. And when we were filming, we didn't hear it at the time, and it wasn't until it was back at the footage that we caught what sounds like a little girl crying. And when I heard that, I was watching the footage at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I absolutely pooed myself when I heard it. I was very scared by it, but I was also very excited by it. And so I was trying to debunk it the best I could, but I couldn't because we didn't hear it at the time. So it was quite exciting for me. And then I showed it to a parapsychologist who's been on Most Haunted. I'm sure you'll be able to guess who it is. And he actually said that he was very intrigued by it.
Was that another Kieran?
It was another Kieran, yeah. We did a talk in York, and he was there to do a talk as well. And we played the EVP for him, and he was very excited about it and asked if we'd gone back to try and recreate it. And I said, unfortunately, the location's not allowing investigators there anymore. So he said, that's a shame, because if you were, then I'd be really interested. But as it stands, I would like to say that's paranormal. And for me, that was pretty much all I needed was for a parapsychologist to say, I think what you've caught is paranormal. And that's what made me go, you know what, I'm going to keep doing this until I find that piece of evidence that really gets me excited about it.
And he was fairly like a healthy, skeptical presence on Most Haunted. So he had a lot of integrity as an investigator, apart from the other members, right? I would say so, yeah. And the fact that he's a trained psychologist as well, and also does the courses in parapsychology, I was kind of quite happy to show him my evidence and say, do what you will with it. Tell me exactly what you think about it.
And for him to come back and go, I'm really interested in this piece, I was like, wow.
So we'll start with Kieran Woodhouse, because I know you're writing books and you do lecture about the paranormal. How are you especially in a place so densely populated in a small area like United Kingdom, how are you getting around all this financial, is it, impediments like where people want to charge tons of money and it's all hype and entertainment? How are you dealing with it to make yourself known as a serious investigator and for people to take you serious rather than like a circus?
I think what we're doing, and it's really working for us, is we're going underground, so to speak, and we're getting off the beaten track, and we're beginning to investigate places that no one really does. And there's several reasons for that. I believe a location can be, excuse the pun, but it can be done to death, and it kind of loses its appeal. And it also gets more and more pricey as the people realise they can charge more for it. But also, it's interesting to do unique locations that not many people do. So, like I said earlier, the pub that's literally opposite my house, we've done 5 or 6 investigations there, and every single time we've come away with some half decent evidence, and it makes it worth going. Put it that way, and that's what we're doing to tackle it. We're kind of contacting people. We're going to houses. We're doing private investigations, because of course that keeps the costs down for us. But it also gets our name out there and allows people to see that we are serious. And we're not just turning up with downloaded apps on our phone with pre-made words in and that are going to tell us about a girl that had died there or something. So yeah, it's easy to do. It's easy to kind of get out of the rat race.
And I think it's good that you're doing that sort of lesser known locations, because then when you're going in, you're sort of going in with a neutral perspective, because you don't know all this stuff about it. Like if you're going to castles and places that have been on TV, you already have a notion about the information and who's there, which this way you have to deal with, from scratch and actually really be in the location without all these preconceived stories necessarily.
I think that's right.
Or legends.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is that if you do have guests come, it's so easy to just Google the location and they can come with a bunch of information that they already know. So they can pretend to be possessed, or they can pretend to have thought implants of what the place was or what's going on there. But yeah, it also means that we're going to places that have never been done, and that's quite exciting, because we're the ones that are breaking new ground there. We're not just going and are we experiencing something because hundreds of people have experienced it before and it's kind of planted in our subconscious. As Kieran said, that door will open, because it always opens. If we go somewhere new, we don't know that door opens. So when it does, it the excitement levels are almost through the roof, because it's like, we found something. I imagine it's what an explorer would feel when they found new land. It's kind of like that.
So, Kieran Begg, do you have any sort of plans or how you want to take out your investigations in the future when we get out of all this, isolation stuff, of course? How do you plan? The costs are big. How do you want to go about it? Do you have any ideas?
Well, obviously we've got to get out of the situation, but also I need my colleague to be as fit as he can be. And just at the moment, he's still up in the air, and we just kind of want to make sure that he's all right to start off with. So that's kind of my main priority. But with our group, we are just 3 people, and that's kind of what I want to stick it at. I don't want to have lots more people, because I think it's an interesting way of looking at investigating, having less people there than having lots of people, just to see if that can change the way the investigation goes. But certainly financially, if it is, to try and get some of the big name locations that you kind of want to get under your belt, it can be very expensive. But as Kieran says, what I'd like to do is kind of branch out into the kind of unknown locations that a lot of people haven't necessarily been to, and try and find obscure ones and do that same sort of thing, just kind of get that excitement back to of investigating and finding all these new places. And I just think that's kind of where I want to take it. I want to kind of get back into investigating and exploring a bit more of the UK. But like I say, I just need the team to be, 100% healthy and ready to go. That's kind of my priority right now.
I had Cal Korff on my show about a month and a half ago. Now he's a high skeptic. He's an investigative journalist. And decades ago, he busted a lot of UFO cults. So, he's coming at this from a skeptical point of view when he did the paranormal. He does many other things, mostly political journalism. And he said, and I'll see if you guys agree with this, that if it's happening and it's real and it's happening in our world, I'm paraphrasing, this is not an exact quote, and it's actually tangible and it exists and this paranormal stuff is happening, it could actually no longer be the paranormal. Aliens, UFOs, all that stuff, if it's actually happening on planet Earth and it's real, it's not outside of the normal anymore. It's within our realm. So he always felt that the word paranormal was just kind of silly, that if it's happening and you're investigating and it's real, maybe science can't describe it, but it's actually wouldn't be para or outside the normal. It would be something that's normal. Do you agree with that?
Personally, I don't, because I think anything I can't explain, so anything that we can't explain while we're there, I class as paranormal. That's not necessarily to say it's a ghost. I just say it's not normal. That's my definition of paranormal. So,
okay.
I mean, even if science can't explain it, if it's not normal, to me, that is paranormal.
I think for me, the problem is we live in a society where we're still looked upon as kind of being a bit crazy for doing what we do and for believing what we believe. And, I'm big into UFOs and things like that as well. And I've got close friends, very close friends, who still can't get their head around that. And I'm kind of a butt of some jokes, basically, when it comes to that kind of thing. And I think that's why we have to call it paranormal, because we live in a society that, will never accept it as normal. For whatever reason, it's probably a whole different show.
Right.
And I think, unfortunately, I'm kind of between what that guy said and Kieran here. I can see what he's saying, but at the same time, I don't think it's ever going to be accepted as normal.
Right. I think the only way that it would be accepted as normal, and when he says normal, he doesn't mean what all your friends accept. I think what he means is it's actually, within normal experiences that people are having them. Science has said, oh yeah, we can definitely define this. And so it's not because people believe it or not, it's because it's happening within our realm and our universe. If it's happening in the universe, it's normal, it's not odd, but regardless of what people think. I think that's what he was trying to get at, but it was interesting to know your perspective, and now I understand why he said that, but I also understand why you guys are saying classifying it as a paranormal, separates it from just mundane sort of everyday stuff, that how people perceive it. I completely get that. Those are valid points as well. Let's see where we can go with this. I'll probably have to edit this part out. I'm winging it here. I have no questions written down. But so where can we go now about franchises? Is there anything we've missed that you guys really want to say about this whole industry of paranormal researching?
I'd like to maybe talk about the future of evidence.
Sure.
That's something I'm quite big on at the moment, discussing where it's going, basically, and can we ever trust it again, thanks to things like CGI, Photoshop.
Oh God, yeah, we haven't even gotten into all those hoaxes. I mean, the videos that are out there about ghosts, and we haven't even gotten into how easy it is to manipulate stuff with apps. So that is just insane world. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, for me, one of the main concerns is the future of evidence and the future of the investigative field itself. Partly because of these people, the most haunted effect, as I call it, where these people are still kind of coming out to investigations expecting it to be completely what it isn't, but also technology and we never have a clear picture of a UFO, for example, or we never have a clear picture of a ghost. And the problem is, if we ever do, and if we ever do see, what could possibly be the best piece of evidence we will ever witness in our lives, there's always going to be someone telling you it's fake, and there's always going to be that doubt in your own mind, thinking, but is it photoshopped? Is it CGI'd? So we could be looking at the best piece of evidence ever, but we might never fully believe it.
Yeah,
I think that's really an important point there. I also think, for me, if I was to actually see the ghost of someone in front of me, at first I'd be very excited, but then my brain would go, right, where's the projector? How is this happening? This physically can't be possible, surely. And then, or if I filmed it, I'd go, how on earth have I managed to do that? That must be a glitch in the camera. There has to be an explanation for it. But I think that comes down to, because you've seen so many videos on YouTube and movies and things like that, and you know how easily it can be manipulated, that you even start to doubt yourself sometimes.
Well, and you don't want to be anybody's fool and use, you're trying to be logical. I mean, I'm highly skeptical because I know how doing shows on cults and psych, I know how easy it is, and how you know what, you're a person in this world, and you have to remember that people have agendas and objectives, and so they're out to get your money, and so you don't want to be anybody's fool either at the same point, right?
Absolutely.
I don't want to post something and I'm actually trying to be logical and sound person and look like I'm posting a video of a Sasquatch that's been proven a hoax, and I'm just so naive that I'm like, hey, it's a Sasquatch, right? You don't want to be that person either, because it's sort of like, okay, you want to be objective, but I had that experience about 2 weeks after my grandmother died. And I wasn't crying or upset at the moment. I was just normally sitting in my bed, on my phone, sort of, texting stuff and whatever. And I tell you, it was like she was right there, and all of a sudden I could feel her, gently patting the top of my head in this loving grandmotherly way. And I'm like, I knew what was happening. I was like, wow, that is totally her. That I just feel like she's right here. It's so bizarre. But then, like you said, I was logically well, Melissa, it could be your grief. It could be this. And I've had this experience before when someone else died. And I tried to, after it had happened, maybe a couple of days later, I was trying to logically say what it could be, but I'm no, I'm I honestly think that was her. But I get what you mean by we try to make some logic out of it. So I don't know, maybe it helps us somehow, and then maybe it helps other people to believe just everything. It's a fine line.
I think there, where you say you don't want to be that guy who puts on that fake photo of Bigfoot or something. I think the problem there is genuine investigators like ourselves. We might capture a really good piece of evidence, something that we can't explain, and we want to put it out there. But there's always that fear of ridicule. There's that fear of someone kind of knocking you back and calling you a liar. And I think what that means is, I'm sure there are hundreds of people out there who've got really good evidence, but they're just scared to actually put it out there into the ether for people to analyse and for people to see. But they're just scared of the kind of the feedback they're going to get, and to be quite honest, the abuse, because I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen people become quite nasty when their beliefs are challenged. And I think that's a massive point to make, that there's so much evidence out there that people are holding back because they're just scared.
But I think a lot of it can derive from this whole TV media aspect, because if you look at videos that are on YouTube of it's kind of two industries almost are bleeding into each other. You've got urban explorers who are also dabbling in paranormal investigation, and they are using things like spirit boxes and doing all the kind of things that Zach Bagans does and all those kind of things on Ghost Adventures. And then they're going, oh, we're paranormal investigators. And I'm like, well, no, you're not. You're YouTube stars who are wanting to try and break into the industry and try and get all these views and followers. But they are putting all this evidence out there, and they've got all these teenagers and young adults who are following them going, oh my God, that's the best evidence I've ever seen. So that when actual investigators come out and say, well, here's my evidence, they're going, oh, it's not as good as, Jeff on YouTube. His evidence is real. And like, well, this is real. And his evidence isn't. This is real. Take this. And they're going, no, that's fake. That's fake. Jeff is real. He's cool because I follow him, and I've got all of his merchandise and all this stuff. It's really difficult for us, as Kieran says, to actually bring out good evidence and feel confident to say, this is my evidence. Here you go.
That's interesting. So where is it going to go in the future?
For me, I think one thing I say when I do my talks is I always end on the fact that it's getting more and more of a personal experience, and it always has been personal. We can have all the devices that we want, but devices can have faulty batteries or faulty wiring, but it's always a personal experience, and I think I'm seeing that more and more with my own investigations, that as long as I come away from it, I know what I've experienced. I could be one of those medium type people that lie, and if I do lie, then I have to go to sleep knowing that. But as long as I know what I've seen and I can trust myself, then that's all that matters. And if I capture evidence, then great. But if it's just a personal experience that I encounter, then that's just as good. And you have to accept that. You can't come away being disappointed because you haven't captured full manifestation on a camera, because it's not going to happen. Yeah. So for me, it's just getting more and more personal.
I find that's a really good point. No, when the Cal Korf that I had mentioned about when he was, highly skeptical and talking about the paranormal, and I had him on, I told him about the experience with my grandmother, and he's a really good friend of mine. So I was kind of like, oh, what's he going to say? How judgy is he going to be? And he was like, you know what? I've had some experiences that I couldn't explain, and that's a personal experience. It doesn't mean we have no way of proving that. It doesn't mean you're a fraud or a liar. You're just saying a personal experience. He's like, I'm out there to crack these cults and people who are purposely, manipulating stuff, not somebody who's just said, I had this really weird experience and it's personal and they're not trying to make money or manipulate anybody. So I think that's a really good way of putting it.
I completely agree with both of you there. I think the future is down to personal experiences now, because I think no matter how hard you try, no matter what the evidence you're going to get, the way the world is going now and everything with the internet, despite the fact that you've got this fantastic evidence, no one's going to take you seriously because they're all going to think it's fake. So having the personal experience, and as you say, Kieran, if you can come away with it and go, you know what, I did see that person in that room, then that's great. That's kind of all you need. I think if you write that down in a report and say, this is what I found, then that's fine. And showing pictures, people aren't going to believe it. But if you can walk away from it going, you know what, I did see that, then I think that's the best evidence that you're going to get.
That's excellent. So do you guys, I'm going to wrap this up in a few minutes. I'm going to give you guys last word, anything you want to say about the paranormal, and then we'll wrap it up. And I think that's a great show.
Sure. Do you want to go, Kieran?
Yeah, I would just like to say that, the paranormal is a fantastic field, and for the past 12 years, 13 years, I've absolutely loved working in it, and it's basically my life. I live and breathe it, and I would be lost without the paranormal, and the paranormal community is a lovely community to be part of, because everyone's so willing to share evidence and discuss evidence and help you out, and come on podcasts like this and all this kind of thing, and it's just such a fantastic community to be part of. And if anyone's ever thinking about becoming a paranormal investigator, I would highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah, I think I'd just have to echo that, really. Kind of get off your sofa, stop watching Most Haunted, and get out there and start investigating. Theorise, throw theories out there, as crazy as they could possibly be, because you never know what will stick. And just start investigating. Your local pub, like I do, your friend's house, anywhere you can. Obviously, stay safe. But just get out there and get evidence and help the field grow.
Excellent. Well, you know what? Right now, you're actually considered a warrior for sitting on your sofa. So don't get out. Don't go out there right now. If you guys are under lockdown, wait a little bit. But, you can, you know what? You can use this opportunity in your house to start writing and researching on the internet and making plans. Absolutely. So don't just sit on the sofa and watch, Tiger King or whatever the hell's out there on Netflix. All right. Well, so Kieran Woodhouse, where can people find you online?
I've got, as you mentioned earlier, I've got my own podcast. So that's the Paranormal Paradigm podcast. So if you search that on Facebook, you'll come across our page. You can just search for me on Facebook, Kieran Woodhouse. I'm always happy to kind of answer questions and get in touch with people.
Kieran Begg, where can people find you online?
Again, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram under the Paranormal Guys. And again, I have my own podcast, which is the Paranormal Guys podcast, which you can find anywhere that you get your podcasts.
All right, perfect. We'll put all those links in the show notes. I will also, hopefully, if I remember when I edit this, put the links into Kieran Woodhouse and Kieran Begg's past show on the podcast. I hope everybody enjoyed that little bit of a show because we're all kind of in a little mini lockdown. And this was sort of a break doing this interview from the tedious, isolation. So I'm glad you guys came on. Thank you both so much for having this discussion with me.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right, guys. Take care. And you know what? I know I had this lineup of how things were going to be on the podcast, but it's, I have everything booked right up into May. So I know I said Letitia's going to be out here in this show, but I've done some extra recordings. So you know what? I can't say what comes out, whatever I feel like putting out. But there will be a podcast, of course, every Friday. And I hope everyone takes care. And make sure to follow me on Instagram. Secret Door Podcast. I've just discovered that in Canada now you used to not be able to add music to your stories. Now you can add music. So you can bet I'm in quarantine. I will be doing weird stories on Instagram and all that stuff. And I love memeing. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And we'll see you next time on Secret Door Podcast.
So that was the special interview there between myself, Melissa, and Kieran. Hopefully you didn't get too confused with there being two Kierans. We had to clarify before we started, hence why Melissa kept referring to us by our second names. Hopefully you found that interesting and maybe a bit controversial, which is always a good thing. It's always good to question things and to get things out on the table to discuss. As I mentioned in the intro, if you've got anything that you wish to put towards this debate, just put it on Facebook, put it on the group, send me by email. I'm happy to mention people's opinions and thoughts. That wouldn't be a problem at all. So, as I say, hopefully you enjoyed that. Please take care. Please look after your loved ones during what's going on at the moment. And we'll speak soon. Until then, take care.